Okay, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well out there tonight. This is the Wealthy Educator, and this is Black Men Talk Wealth. I have a few special guests with me tonight. I'm going to go ahead and start with Mr. Kyle Quigley IV. Kyle, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. I didn't forgot now, but my name is Cal Quigley IV. I have several roles. I'm over the nursing and allied health programs at Tarrant County College and also a professor of global business at TCU's esteemed Neely School. And just happy to be here tonight.
Okay, appreciate that introduction. Go ahead, Mr. Sajay Miller.
Man, it's hard to go after that. You should have let us go first and let Kyle forget. But I'm just Sajay Miller, Fort Worth educator, currently superintendent, CEO of Rocketship Public Schools, Texas, a nonprofit charter organization, hoping to serve kids here in Tarrant County. So also a husband and father of 2 young men. So glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Brother Griffin, go ahead.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
okay,
sir.
Good. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Nicholas Griffin. I currently am a unit manager up at Peterbilt, where we build 18-wheeler trucks. And outside of that, I also work a business called Primerica, helping families with their life insurance and talking about getting their investments and planning for the future. Husband, and have 2 kids, and in a great fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. One of those things right there.
That's what's up, man. Appreciate you, man. Brother Davis.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Wealthy Educator, for this invitation. My name is Daryl Davis. I am currently the executive pastor of Inspiring Temple of Praise Church here in Fort Worth. I'm also a senior project manager for the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship and an adjunct professor at Dallas College at the Eastfield campus. Prior to leaving corporate America and going into education full time, I was a sales manager for a Fortune 500 financial group based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So I spent about 15 years in the financial services industry prior to, again, going into ministry full time as well as education. So again, thank you, Wealthy Educator, for giving me this opportunity to join you all tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. And I'm Rashad Muhammad. I'm a principal in the Crowley Independent School District here in the Fort Worth area in Texas. And I'm also a realtor, a local realtor in the area. And, we wanted to create a space where we discuss money. It's not often where brothers sit down and just talk about money and talk about generational wealth. And we're going to try to do that tonight. So, I was recently reading an article, a Bloomberg article, and it said that, African Americans hold $6 of assets for every $100 owned by whites. Let's go ahead and create a little discussion around that. Cal, we'll go ahead and get started with you. When you hear those kind of numbers, which I know you've seen before, what do you think about that?
Well, the first thing it makes me think about is the inequity that America has continued to perpetuate. Those aren't new numbers. They haven't changed much since I looked at them in the early 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. And so at some point, and we'll talk about this, I know, as we go forward, at some point, as Black men, we have to take ownership over what is. Okay, so they're not going to give us anything. And being a military man myself, I know that if you want something, you got to go and get it. You got to go and take it. And so when I hear those kind of numbers, it says to me that we have a mindset as Black people that this is where we belong and we want to stay there. And, by what I hope we talk about tonight is, no, that's not what it's about.
Okay. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say I totally concur with what Brother Cal said, because it speaks to of inequities that exist and have existed in our country for years. And it is a lingering problem to issues that existed hundreds of years ago. And I think we have to be, not only we as a community, but I think we as a country have to be intentional about righting those wrongs. But again, that's a deeper discussion for a different time. But hopefully through this conversation tonight, someone will be enlightened to be able to do, make some small changes, small incremental changes to be able to have a monumental impact, if not in their lives, in the lives of their children and their children.
All right, thank you. So $6 for $100, $6 for African American wealth, $100 for white wealth. So Jay, what do you think about that when you hear that?
Yeah, I think that's a staggering statistic, right? But I think we also got to think about, we didn't get here over night. There's a quote by Deming that says, systems are designed perfectly to get the results that they're getting. That's by design, right? So I think it's part of it that we have a responsibility as men to cultivate habits, financial habits, and education that change that over time. And my brother Daryl said incremental change that have a big impact. But I think also it's incumbent upon those in positions in certain seats of influence and power to dismantle the systems that perpetuate the statistics that you quoted. So not real familiar with the article that you cited, but I think if you look at housing, zoning entitlements, the cost of housing, the availability of affordable housing, you look at financial literacy, access to loans over time, you look at institutional racism and practices and lending, et cetera, that have been discriminatory in nature and have perpetuated this marginalization of our people. I think those in positions of power, we got to speak loudly against that, and then make sure we take actions to remedy that over time.
Appreciate that. And we're going to come back to dismantling racism, systemic racism. Nick, what you got to say, man?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on the brothers. Is exactly, we have to work to bridge the wealth gap. And just like as you said, $6 to African Americans, $6 to white Americans, $100. That's a big gap. And we have to find ways to be able to bridge that gap, be it that starting an entrepreneurship and business mindset, or real estate. And the reason why we're here, to talk about those different options and things like that, to not just always just be dependent upon the 9 to 5 to get you to where you need to go, because we're not having those type of conversations at our kitchen table about, hey, let's get this started for you. Let's get this business started for you. Hey, let me pass this money on to this next generation so they can get started as soon as they get out of school. And so those are some things where we want to be able to bridge those gaps by, opening up your mind, changing your thinking, as far as thinking that I don't always have to work for somebody else. I can work for myself. So.
All right, good stuff. So if we are having a conversation, a dialogue with our own children, and we want to give them a good head start to be financially independent and change generational poverty to generational wealth, what are some of those first stepping stones to building wealth that you all would recommend? Go ahead, Kyle. We'll get started with you again.
Well, I would say, we have to empower our children, and we have to teach them. I believe in the old adage that each one reach one. So as our relationship has grown, that anytime I find a new stock or cryptocurrency or whatever that I'm investing in, I'm sending that out to everybody that I know. And I'm saying, hey, if you have the money that you are willing to spend to lose, then invest in this, because this could potentially change your family tree. I was talking about Dogecoin earlier. A lot of people look at cryptocurrency and they're like, it's too volatile, I'm not willing to go into it. But then they go spend $300 on a pair of Jordans that will never net them anything other than a couple of compliments. And so we have to change the mindset in the generations behind us. And the way we do that is just by, teaching them what we know and allowing them to grow from where we started. Every generation, we're starting back over at 0. That's why we're 6 to 100.
And let me jump in because I think Cal is absolutely right. We're starting back over at 0 every generation. And again, that has to be one of those intentional things that we do to ensure that we leave our children better off than we were. And that is something that we as a community are coming into now more than ever. But I think it's also necessary for us to take practical steps, which is why financial literacy is so important. Understanding how money works. That wasn't something that my parents actually taught me because they didn't know. They literally lived, and even to some degree still live, paycheck to paycheck. When this money comes in, this money goes on these bills. And that's basically how they existed. And that's what I learned based on seeing how they operated. But We were talking before we went live about the fact that my parents, even though I grew up in Stop 6, and it is a cardinal rule that in my family you pretty much go to Dunbar. But because I wanted to attend the finance and communication magnet program that existed at Poly High School, they allowed me to commit a cardinal sin and go somewhere other than Dunbar. And so there was a wealth of information that I was exposed to because of the school that I went to that my family never had the knowledge of. And so what I'm trying to do now is teach my children, even at this stage. I have an 11-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. And I try to teach them now to understand how money works. And so I try to be very practical with them about things, about saving, but they also understand even at an elementary level about investing. One of the rules that we have in my house is that we do business where we already do business. And what I mean by that is, we are, unlike Brother Griffin and Brother Quigley, we are an Apple family. So we have iPhones and iPads and all those kinds of things. Well, one of our biggest holdings as far as stock is concerned is Apple. Why have Android products if we own part of Apple? So that's the kind of mindset and perspective that I'm teaching my children even now, that's how you even begin to make your money work for you by investing in the things that you already invest in. And so I think just small practical things like that will make a world of difference for not only our children, but again, our children's children.
That's some good stuff. And I like the fact that you guys are talking about the kids, because I've even told my kids, for every dollar you spend right now, every dollar now is worth $88 in 45 years. So I can give my daughter $100 and she wants to bring me $75 to put in her, Fidelity or Vanguard account in her IRA. So, because we did open IRAs, for the kids. There are ways to do that, if you have earned income. But, once they learn that and they know, hey, every dollar I spend now is going to take away $88 in 45 years, then it changes the way that they handle money and they view money. Nick, you're about to say something?
No, just piggybacking off Daryl, especially with the stock and things like that. That's one thing that it's like, and Cal was talking about it, brothers out there buying. I mean, you've got the money. That's you can do what you want to do with it, but buying, $220, almost $300 J's, but you don't have no Nike stock. So it's like you could have put that $200, $300 into some stock to allow it to flip for you and things like that. But also to piggyback off of what Daryl was saying, is just making sure that you're having these conversations early. Get yourself the education as far as the financial education, and always be a sponge on learning and always reading. But definitely learn the rules of the money game, especially like teaching kids at a young age. Especially one rule I know that we talk to clients about and families about, and just education with financial education, is called the Rule of 72. I'm not sure if you brothers have heard of the Rule of 72. Yep. And I'm glad that you brothers are nodding your head, because that is, man, if they could teach that in school, man, I think that right there could help better people, especially our culture, along the way, is learning, definitely having a bank account. That's fine, so you can get, your purchases here and there and things like that. But at the same time, as far as allowing your money to grow, and thinking that, I'm going to put my money in a savings account, well, your money's not going to grow. You know what I'm saying? And just for those that are here on live and watching us, just to educate you, the Rule of 72 is also called the banker's rule. And it's basically a calculation of how you can see how often your money's going to double. And so most banks right now are, if their savings interest rate is like 0.01%. So you putting your money in there. So when you divide that into 72 times, you ain't gonna ever see your money grow. And so I know we break down an example to share with families how banks are making money off of us. If you had $10,000 in the bank and you got 3%, let's just say it's 3%, and so that's so it's gonna take 24 years just for your 10,000 to become 20,000, and then it's gonna take another 24 years just to get to 40,000. And so when you think about it, can you really retire off of 40,000? No, you can't do that, right? But the thing is the banks take our same 10,000 and invest into the global market. They'll get like 12% on that 10,000. And over time, over that 48 years, they just made $2.56 million off of whose money? Your money, right? So what they actually do is they pocket 2.54 and they give 2.52 and they give you the 40. And they say, thank you for banking with us. And they normally have like those little candy things at the bank, right? And it's normally like a sucker, right? What's that sucker called? It's called a dum-dum, right?
It's all strategic, right?
Strategic, man. It's all strategic, man.
Wow. That's some good stuff right there, man. Seriously, the rule of 82. So Primerica is where I got my introduction to finances as well. Like the first thing I think I learned was to buy term and invest the difference. So a lot of people have asked me, you know, what do I think about whole life insurance or term insurance? So we have not had any dialogue. We might disagree on this topic, but let's go ahead and have that discussion. Buy term and invest the difference. What does that mean to you, Daryl?
So I understand the philosophy, but I also understand that there is a place times for whole life insurance, particularly on children. So one of the things that I did with my children was bought what's called 20-year life. And so I pay this for 20 years. After 20 years, it's paid up. I'm able to, at that point, when they're 20 years old, transfer to them an asset that will to grow over time. And at that point, they can do what they want to do with it, you know. Yeah. At my age, I have term insurance for me. And so I certainly understand the importance of investing the difference. I didn't come up through the Primerica ranks. I went a more traditional route. And so I wasn't fully on that bandwagon because I do understand that there is a place for both.
Yeah, and term life is so cheap. I definitely sleep with one eye open every night.
Listen, I let it be known. I'm worth more dead than alive.
Absolutely.
A lot more dead than alive.
I do not make my wife upset. So, and one thing about it, so, you know, some people have whole life, some people don't have whole life. I think one of the most important things to understand when you talk about finance is that it's personal finance. So Daryl, obviously you're doing very well financially. So nobody should come in here and argue with you about how you're doing your life insurance. You know, I don't have any whole life, but, you know, I totally respect and understand people that do, you know. So Jay, what do you think, brother?
Yeah, so I have similar policies for my children. I have a whole for my children in what's called a TIMPay, right? It's a vehicle that allows it to gain cash value. It's quite expensive, but after 10 years, it is permanent insurance that I then pass on. That's one of my college fund mechanisms. And so it's accruing interest at a very rapid rate because the premium is condensed to 10 years, right? The other thing is a whole life for my children because I got it when they were days old, right? And so those are very affordable and things that I can transfer to my children. But in terms of myself, I think the concept of buy term and invest the rest is that as you get older, your need for insurance decreases because your net worth and your debt increases. So your legacy is not capsulated in a policy. You know, zombies, you know, they say you can't be a zombie. You can't live in the land of the dead and the living. So why invest in a mechanism that's based off of death? So in term, what you do is you minimize the amount of insurance over time as your net worth and your assets accumulate. Therefore, you're not relying on a policy or an entity that is subjected, by the way, to the market and the whims of everything else and fixed at inflation. Whereas if you invest, then it moves with inflation over time in a positive direction. So I have a substantial amount of term insurance to ensure that my wife is comfortable, beyond comfortable if something were to happen to me. And my legacy continues that way. But I'm also very aggressively investing a large part of my net wealth into various mechanisms. And over time, the goal is, you know, pay off the house in 7 years, of course, stay debt free. But as I accumulate wealth, I minimize the amount of insurance I have. And so that's the philosophy that we subscribe to in my household.
So ultimately, the goal is to become self-insured.
That's right.
Got it. Okay. Kyle, what do you think about insurance, brother?
You know, I got introduced a couple of years ago to Alert. I don't know if you are familiar with that. It's a life insurance retirement policy. And essentially what it does is it helps you create a family bank. So just real quick, stick with me. So you invest a certain amount of money. After 3 years, you can pull from that money. However, the insurance policy, say it's $500,000, that doesn't go away until you retire and start taking money from the LERP. So when I heard it, it was a white guy that introduced me to it. And when I heard it, I thought to myself, I said, no, that's too good to be true. But like I said earlier, we have to expose and allow ourselves to be exposed to different things. That's how we grow. And then, of course, we take it and we give it to the culture. And so it took me about 6 months, man, before I actually signed. You know, my wife and I, we went back and forth. But what I really realized is I started asking people, like I mentioned, I work at TCU and some other institutions. I get a chance to rub elbows with individuals that you would normally get to. And so I started asking them, I'm like, hey, you ever heard of a LERP? They were like, how you know about that? And then that's when I was like, bingo, I'm getting alert. But yeah, man, it changed the game for me. It really opened my eyes up. And like I said, you're essentially creating your own bank. And so instead of me going and borrowing from the bank to go purchase a vehicle or anything like that, I can borrow that money from myself now. And it lowers my total insurance. Again, $500,000. It lowers it by how much ever I took out. But then I can go back and pay that money back to myself and pay back in to that insurance policy. So if you haven't heard of it, you know, do your research. But it's been really wonderful to be exposed to something like that because, you know, we're talking about generational wealth. That's where it is.
Okay, I appreciate that, man. So there are some people that are listening now, and some people are going to listen a little later once it's uploaded. That sounds like an acronym. Can you tell me what the acronym is, or tell the listeners what the acronym is and what it stands for? Yeah,
so LERP is Life Insurance Retirement Policy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hopefully you'll post our email addresses or something like that. I have no issues at all with anybody contacting me, and I'll give you the information that I have because again, it's not for me to hold on to, it's for me to share.
Man, that's what's up, man. That's awesome. Now, I do want to transition a little bit. I know Sajay did, bring up dismantling systemic racism earlier. Now, how do we even begin to do that? I know these conversations are important to start, but how do we do it? Like it's been going on for years and generations. How do we do that? How do we start?
I'll jump in here. When I think about racism, you know what I always think? I think it's not that Black people have a problem with being Black. It's that white individuals who are racist or prejudiced or whatever, they have a problem with us. Now you brought us to this country, you forced us to build it, and now you want to throw us away. But that's not how the thing is going to work. So when we start talking about systemic racism, I think it starts with our allies. It starts with the other cultures recognizing the value of Black lives in this country and what we did to make this country as great as it is. Like I mentioned before, I served in the military, and one of the things that I learned in the military is the brotherhood, very similar to what we have in Alpha. And so, a guy could be a staunch racist from Tennessee, but if we're fighting in a war, I know this guy's got my back. And so when individuals allow themselves to be exposed and to meet different people and to come into contact with individuals like us who are intelligent, who are articulate, who can have a conversation about what we're talking about in a civil manner, I think that's really where where we start to make some progress.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll add, in order for, racism by definition is prejudice based on the basis of race and power that distributes resources based off of that prejudice, right? And so two things have to be in place for racist systems to persist: individuals in power, and then prejudice, judging a group of people based off of what you assume to be true. right? And so I think one way to counter racism is to become the individuals in positions of power. That is my cry to our community. The best testimony is a changed life. The best way to deconstruct an ineffective system is to be at the helm of that system. The best way to ensure your kids are productive is to be productive yourselves. I think we lead by example, right? So the few of us who are able to scrap and claw and get ourselves out of systemic and generational deprivation should aspire to serve as a change agent, right? That's number one. And number two, I think it's the recognition that the system is inherently biased, and neutrality tends to favor those in positions of power, right? One of our scholars said it's like a moving walkway. You can't be passive when you're just talking about dismantling and deconstructing racist systems. You can't, it's like in the airport, you're on the moving walkway. And if you sit still, you're moving in the direction that sustains systems that are inherently biased. But it takes us and our allies, upon recognition, to actively walk in the opposite direction of the gradient that is moving us towards further marginalization and further wealth and education gaps, to make sure we dismantle it in an active way, right? So we do so by making sure that we are able to get to a level to create generational wealth ourselves, right? We do that by making sure that professionally that we are put in positions of power, that we accept invitations to join boards, so that we are in positions to approve budgets, that allocate resources and make determinations of the policies that impact systems. And then lastly, I think it's the sharing of information. And I'll tell you, Kyle, and I'll be quiet on this question, but Kyle, you said it best. You said, I learned that from a white man. I got news for our people, and I love my Black brothers and sisters. But everything that looks like you isn't necessarily for you, and everything that doesn't look like you is not your enemy. So I think it's incumbent upon us to make allies and identify co-conspirators within our various fields as we work to dismantle systems of that promote implicit bias and institutional racism. And then I think secondly, we do have to make sure that we are a good representative when we share the information with our families and with our allies, Black and white alike.
You probably dropped the mic after that. Anybody want to follow that up?
Yeah, I just want to concur with those two gentlemen. I think they articulated it efficiently and perfectly, frankly. Cal said, he mentioned allies, and if we think historically, the civil rights movement did not gain the traction that it gained until there were white sympathizers who saw the pain and whatnot that was being inflicted on people of color. It wasn't until those white sympathizers said, we've got to do something about this. Because Black folk had been complaining and marching and protesting and everything all along, but no one was listening until there were familiar voices to those of those power that decided we need to do something. That's when things began to change. And Sajade so passionately talked about how we have to basically have a seat at the table. We have to put ourselves in positions of influence and become some of the policymakers. It's no secret that I made a run for Fort Worth City Council 2 years ago. And part of the reason that I chose to do that was because I realized how necessary it was for us to have a seat at the table. The district in which I live does not have representation that favors the majority of the district. And so policies are being put in place that don't necessarily are not necessarily in the best interest of the majority of the community. And so versus complaining about it, I decided to do something about it and make a run for council. Now, unfortunately, I turned up short, but we were able to highlight issues that our community needed to focus on. 2 years ago, I was the only person that was talking about the need for police reform in the city of Fort Worth. Now that issue has become front and center. I think had I not began to cry aloud and spare not, I don't believe that anybody would have maybe taken that mantle and made that a concrete issue in the city of Fort Worth. Because frankly, in this city, people were dying, and those people looked like me. And they were being killed, unfortunately, by people who didn't necessarily look like me, but who were sworn to serve and protect me. But they saw a difference in me than they did in others. that had to be addressed. And so I would encourage us in understanding we need people in positions of power. It may not be me that is trying to get that seat on city council or the state legislature or in Congress or whatever. But I need to understand if there is someone who is going in the same direction as I'm going, someone who believes the same things that I believe, someone who deals.
Daryl done got so passionate.
Man, I was
let
like,
me
Freezing.
can to try to help them. And one of the things that I want to encourage us to do is contribute to political campaigns. We say we want people in power. Well, guess what? Campaigns cost. And one of the things that we do is that we can help those people get in office by sowing into their campaigns as little or as much as you can, because that makes a difference. And I'm gonna get off my soapbox and get off the pulpit and sit down.
man,
that pulpit got so hot.
Doors of the church are open.
Yeah. and when we have these conversations and when we are able to become financially independent and responsible with our money, we are able to donate to various causes that we're passionate about. So that's definitely good that we are having this conversation. Nick, were you about to say something as well about the whole systemic racism aspect?
Man, these boys killed that. So I'm gonna take another question a little bit later. But them boys right there killed that. So the doors of the church are open. Go ahead and pass the collection plate, and we can get that to Brother Jared Williams. So go ahead.
Get him in District 6, huh?
Yeah, let me add something real quick that Daryl reminded me of. There's a book by Dr. Claude Anderson that Pyronomics is the name of the book, and it talks about how as a people we have to gain the wealth, and then, like Daryl said, then we have to start creating policy. And if you know anything about the political game, it's very nasty. There's a lot of funds that get passed around to create opportunities for individuals who gave that money. And so if we continue to be on the sideline and we don't have any money to give, then we'll never be able to get in power. So I would just employ individuals to take a look at Dr. Claude Anderson. He's someone that has been saying that from the rooftops since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and he's in his 90s now, and he's still saying that same thing. So, at some point we gotta start reading and turning the tide, though.
Yeah, and great points, guys. And some of us are educators, and how do we believe that using education as a powerful tool can help to dismantle the system and help us get out of the generational poverty and become wealthy as families?
Let Nick tee this one up since he didn't get to go last time.
Say the question again. Cal put me on the spot.
Let's talk about education. Education obviously can be used as a powerful tool, or it could be one of those things where, not done the correct way, somebody can, if you drop out, you might necessarily, you might not have the opportunity to become wealthy, or you might become wealthy by dropping out. So how does education play a role in dismantling systemic racism?
I think with education, especially as educators, those of you that are educators, and we all have our goal of being an educator in some form or fashion, even though we may not necessarily have that degree to be an educator. You need to be able, if you learn something, you need to be able to teach something to pass it on to somebody else. But as an educator, I believe that you should wholeheartedly pour into that child to guide them down the right path, as far as educating them about what they need to do in the right paths of things of financial wellness, and just even all aspects. I think that will help in a way, in a manner, to get them going in the right direction. And even just like with our Alpha Academy, having those conversations with young men and allowing them to see that there are ways and opportunities for you to grow and have a better life down the road and things like that. So you don't have to feel like, oh, I'm a product of my environment, that this is the only way that I can go with things, because this is I was raised in the streets and things like that. There's more out there, and so being able to educate them and just to pour into them, pour life into them, breathe life into them, and just give them that belief that there's an opportunity out there for me, and just basically it's really in the mindset, and if we can start with talking and making sure that we get pour into that mindset, and that's the start right there, that I believe. So
I'll follow up to Brother Nick. One of my personal mantras in life, and I have several, but one of them is find something that you love to do so much that you'll do it for free, but you do it so well that you get paid for it. Now the caveat is do it so well that you get paid for it. Education, traditionally education meant graduating from grade school, going on to college, getting a degree, getting a job, so on and so forth. Well, we're understanding and embracing the fact that education is not just within the confines of conventional education. It may be that some people choose the vocational route and whatnot. The key to it is to find something that you love to do so much that you do it for free, but you do it so well that you get paid for it. Part of getting paid for it is being the best at it. Being the best at it means you need to invest in learning as much as you can about it. Time is out for us being good enough. And there are so many of us who have found that sweet spot of being good enough, but feeling entitled to be made rich doing what it is that we do. Now, if you really want to be the best, then that means you have to go after what it means to be the best. And so I say, if that's not getting the degree, then that's getting a skill, getting a vocation, and, serving as an apprentice under someone who you is where you're trying to be. There are various ways of educating oneself. And I think that we just have to expand our perspective to embrace education in all of its forms so that we do it so well that we get paid for it.
Yeah, and that's a great transition. You made some great points. That's a great transition into the next topic. So, I think everybody on this call, there was no way that we were not going to college. Our parents were going to make sure we went to college. But now there's a push for, to look into trade schools and look into other options. What do you guys think about, pushing kids towards their passions and obviously trade schools and things like that, and not necessarily going into $100,000, $200,000 worth of student loan debt to get a degree that they might not necessarily use?
I'll jump in here. I work at Tarrant County College, and part of the reason why I've stayed here is because we offer so many different programs. I'll just talk healthcare for a second here. We have everything from a medical assistant to a nuclear medicine technologist. And, after a 2-year degree, these individuals are stepping out to JPS and making $74,000, $75,000 a year after a 2-year degree. And so when I go and I speak to individuals back in my old neighborhood in Stop 6 and Eastwood and Poly, and I tell them, hey, the landscape has changed. You mentioned that, parents push you and everything. I come from a military family, so I always knew I was going to the military. That was just something that we all do. And so when I got in the military, I realized, hey, I have an opportunity to not only serve my country, but take classes at night. And so by the time I got out of the military, man, I had 2 degrees. And so when I came back, I had the military experience and I had these 2 degrees, and I've done a plethora of things, and they have nothing to do with what I went to school with. But my point is, the landscape has changed. And so we have to implore our children that you don't have to keep going down the same road that we did, because in my opinion, and I'm an educator, and I'm saying this from an inside perspective, they keep moving the bar. It was back in the day, you get a bachelor's degree, you can make $60,000, $70,000, get your master's, you're going to be at the top of the food chain. A doctorate, like nobody even talked about a doctorate. But now in education, for me to maximize my earning potential, I have to go and get a doctorate. So every time I get a new degree, it's like they move the goal line. And so I tell young people, you don't have to do it like I did it. You can do it this way. And these vocational programs, these certification programs, they give them that opportunity.
Yeah, I want to add to that. The concept you're referring to, as you know, Brother Quigley, is credential creep, right? The minimum required credentials keep creeping up. And so, that's also discrimination via education, right? Because, it's a whole nother topic, right? But I am of the mindset, and this is y'all may not love this. I am of the mindset that every child K through 12, their K through 12 experience should be one that prepares them for the opportunity to go to college. I believe that there are multiple pathways towards success. However, I believe firmly that every child should be given a college-ready education. I don't think it's the responsibility of a system or a teacher or an advisor to determine who is worthy of college and who is not. Therefore, I caution the over-reliance on vocational programs in the K-12 space, because if we're not careful and vigilant, it could become a sorting mechanism for those who eventually become college ready and those who are deemed as scholars, right? And so that's just a flag, right? And I truly believe in the inherent good in most people. And so I do also believe that there's a value in exposure to very technical and specific learning opportunities that may allow a student to accelerate their learning if they so decide to post high school graduation to enter into a specialization area, i.e. a trade school. I do believe the traditional either community college or university should be tried by every student. Go and see, go and try, go explore. And if you determine that it is not for you, or if you determine that within that system you want to specialize, then go do it. I think you find that the technical jobs, it used to be a point to where you could do a specialization, and you can if you're the best at it, you can make an infinite amount of money. Now there's an adage that says, the C students hire the A students to manage the B students, right? And so there's something to be said about the hidden curriculum. And I think we have to define, like, really evaluate what an education is, right? And what are the social components of the education system? What are the subliminal messages? How do we create school culture? And then as we talk about K-12, then let's talk about K-16 and beyond. What do those pipelines look like? What do those systems look like? But I know for me and mine, let me just be frank and personal. They going to college and they don't have to worry about how it's paid. And if they decide this ain't for me, I want to do X, Y, and Z, my mindset in my household is not you have to get a degree to be successful, but you're going to go. And if you decide that we need to invest the remainder of your college fund into another pursuit, then you better be the best at it and show me evidence that your passion is worth investing in. So I don't know why I would change that expectation for any other student that I serve.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so Jade, and I totally agree with you, and I commend you for that. One of the realities that I've had to face as a parent and as an educator is the realities that all children, even that I served as an elementary education administrator, all those children didn't have the same opportunities financially that my children had. And so the standard in my house as well is that my children are going to college. And they understand that I'm as committed to that as they are. And so we have discussions even now. My daughter just finished her 6th grade year, and we're already having and have been having conversations about GPAs and why it's important for her to maintain a 4.0 or better, and those things, because she wants to go to the California Institute of Art. Well, if you want to go there, I'm committed to helping you go there, but this is the level of commitment that you have to have. So this is why Daddy stresses all A's, because you're going to help me help you help what you want to make happen. And so, unfortunately, all of the children that I served, and so Jay, maybe the students that you serve, and all of us that are educators, don't necessarily have that same level of exposure in their house. And so I think that we do have to be cognizant of that, because there are some of us that will have opportunities that others won't have. And those that don't have those opportunities, they have to have something internal in them to try to overcome the hurdles that are there. And we have to be there cheering them on and supporting them and letting them know that they can do it. But we also have to understand that there are some hurdles in the way of this young person. And when we talk about everybody being able to have the college experience, well, we got to understand, and this is going back to my point about us having seats of influence and positions of power, because somebody has to pay for that. And my parents didn't have money to set aside for my education. So, but I think that if we could in this country move to a place where particularly the first 2 years of college are paid, then I think we can move more toward and have the expectation that all children will or all students will have that college experience. But if there is not an infrastructure in place to facilitate that, then that means we got to go into debt in order to make it happen. And that debt, listen, student loan debt is pretty much the only debt that you can't outlive. So I think we have to be honest about that. And so we got to have those positions of influence and in those seats of power to try to make the very things that Jay said a reality, because I totally agree with you. I just think we got to make sure that we have something in place so that everybody has that opportunity.
And yeah, that's one good points, Daryl. That's one of the questions I got was, how do we pay for our children's education? And the fact that you said you think that the first 2 years should eventually become free. I think the closest thing that becomes to being free is sending them to a community college like TCC. I looked at the prices one year, man. It was maybe $43 per credit, and you can basically get that degree for free almost. Depending on
64 now.
64 now. Yeah, I think it was like 3 years ago I looked at it, and I just think that's incredible. So I'm a huge proponent. I know some administrators I've spoken with before disagree with me, but I'm a huge proponent of going to a community college for 2 years. You will get an associate's degree, then you can go wherever you want after that. So you'll end up with 2 degrees for probably half the price had you gone to another. I've seen students go to I know one student went to Austin College to get a teaching degree, went about $50,000 in debt in 1 year, and then decided to transfer to UNT. So, that's money that she won't ever outlive, basically, especially as a teacher. So,
and just imagine that, it puts them in the game a lot faster too.
Absolutely.
So 2-year degree. A lot of people try and tell students, if you have a 2-year degree, it's going to be hard for you to work. We literally have RNs 300 that graduate every year, and they're hired within 6 months before they even graduate. And so it just depends on what career field you're going into specifically. But like I said, it puts them in the game a lot earlier, and then they're able to transfer to that 2-year university, TCU or UNT, and now you don't have that much that you have to pay for. But I'm always going to promote the military because they've paid for 5 of my degrees, and I served 8 years. So
he throwing 5 degrees out there.
Right.
Let me borrow one, man. Let me borrow one of your degrees.
and that's, I was also going to ask that question about military, but before we get to that point, what are some various strategies or ways you have seen to fund a child's education, but besides an athletic scholarship, which I was fortunate enough to have?
Well, you definitely got the of course you said the athletic scholarship, right? That's why we got to pour into these kids, because so much as far as our culture is feels like, the only way that I can make it out the hood is through sports, and that's the only way that I can. And then once they get to college, I got to get to the league so I can get my family out the hood and things like that. But definitely we got to pour into these children with their education and talk to them about what they're passionate about. That way you can guide them if they need to go to a 2-year college, or if they need to go to a 4-year college, or if they want to be an entrepreneur, but you have to have some thick skin to be an entrepreneur. And sometimes these kids, they think they want that, but they're not ready for that. But as far as paying for a kid's college, you definitely, depending on how you've been investing, you can do it with investments, or if you're pulling money from the 401k, or if you set up the the UGMAs, I believe, where you can basically, the UGMAs where you start putting into that until they get to a certain age, and that money is specifically set out for education alone for that child, to take care of their education and things like that. So those are some various ways that you can do with that, and that's my piece with that.
All right, good stuff. Anybody else?
Yeah, there are also what you call 529 plans that and there are tax benefits and whatnot for because investing is certainly the key. If you're able to do so, that's certainly the key to grow your money. But how you grow it also matters. And so you want to make sure that it is the account is styled properly so that you reap the tax benefits of it as well. Because you would hate to, grow a portfolio to $100,000 and then you're hit with, 30% taxes on top of that, or whatnot. So you need to make sure, like I said, 529 plan is one of those ways that you're able to save exclusively for a student to go to college and whatnot. But I would say, of course, consult a tax professional to see what your specific situation is, or a financial advisor, certainly, to be able to help you style those accounts properly. But my encouragement and admonishment, and I used to say this to so many families that I worked with individually, don't wait until they get to high school to start having the college conversation and to start making preparation for it. That's literally something that you need to start once they're, to make sure that you are in the best position possible to afford your child's college education. Because unfortunately, people start thinking about it around 14, which means you only have 3 to 4 years before that child graduates. And just by Nick mentioned the rule of 72, think about the kind of investment return you get over the course of 3 years just to grow your money or to double your money. So the sooner you start, the better. I say as soon as that baby cries out, go ahead and get your financial advisor on the phone and try to go ahead. Even and particularly if you only have a little bit to start with something and start as early as possible.
Yeah, good points. And what do you think about the whole scholarship thing? So I read one story about a young lady, an African-American child who literally got her entire college paid off. I think it was over $100,000, but she made applying for scholarships a full-time job. So she might have applied for 1,000 scholarships. If you get 10% of those, you got your college paid for. So, literally starting in your junior year, sophomore year, just applying for scholarships left and right. And the more you apply for, the more opportunity you have to, get it covered, whether it's $100 scholarship here, $1,000 here, but that's a possibility to have your college paid for as well. So I don't know if y'all know anybody who was successful doing that, if y'all want to speak on that.
Well, I'll talk about it from my perspective here at TCC. I often speak to Black and brown students, and I tell them, a lot of times y'all forget about scholarships and grants. 3 years ago, we had to send back $161,000 in scholarships, specifically for African-American and Hispanic students, because they didn't want to do the internship. They didn't want to write the paper. They didn't want to spend the time it took to get X, Y, and Z done. And so, they would rather go and fill out the financial aid. And I'm saying to myself, do you understand what you're doing to yourself? You're leveraging your future now on a 6% financial aid loan when you can get this money for free. So a lot of times I think people forget, like you said, they need to start early, Daryl. I totally agree, but a lot of families don't think that way. But once they are here, we have to encourage those young people to go after those scholarships. When you think about STEM programs, they want so badly for African-American and Hispanic students to go into STEM programs, and these funds are there for them. And, for whatever reason, they feel like they don't deserve it or they wouldn't make it. I tell them all the time, just take it. Let's figure it. Let's see what happens. Let's just take the money and see what happens. And then from there, we can figure something out. Because once they have that comfortability, knowing that, hey, this semester and next semester is taken care of, now that frees their mind to start thinking differently about the education. A lot of them have to work full time when they're going through these programs. Man, you can't work full time, have a kid, and try and go to school. We all know that's a recipe for disaster. And so we have to encourage those young people when you get to those schools. And we talked about stocks and investing earlier. Even some of the companies that they shop at, I tell students, Taco Bell, Dr. Pepper, Coke, they give away $50 and $60 million in scholarships every couple of years. Hey, man, you buy a Coke every day. Go and tell those people what you're going to do with that money and get that free money. So, I just think of it differently because, again, I'm behind the curtain, if you will, and I see some of the missed opportunities that our students don't take advantage of.
Man, good stuff, man. We're gonna go ahead and transition into one more topic for the night. It's been a great conversation. I think it's definitely a conversation we have to have probably every month. I don't know, but the last topic will be about marriage and money. And obviously, like we said earlier, personal finance is personal. We all have our different viewpoints and different ways that we approach this. I don't think we were financially successful until my wife and I were able to get on the same page with money. And for us, that looks like one joint account where everything goes into, and then we each have our separate account for blow money. How do you all feel about, being on the same page? How do you get on the same page with your spouse? Because obviously when you get married, you got two completely different personalities. And my wife is a free spirit. I'm the nerd in a relationship. So how do you all maneuver around those differences in your relationships?
Nobody's gonna be the brave soul and jump out there. All right, I'll jump out there. I'll jump out there. I would just say those conversations need to be had early on, and it's imperative. Scripture says, "How can two walk together lest they be agreed?" It's going to be one hell of a journey if the two individuals are not on the same page as it pertains to finances. Rashad, I ascribe to the practice that you talked about. Everything goes into one account, and then there is separate accounts to do whatever you will out of. But I think whatever system a couple has in place, I think you both have to be committed to that plan. And people often think that infidelity is the number one reason for divorce. Well, actually, it's not. The number one reason for divorce is finance. People on different pages as it pertains to their finances. And so I think, also, and I'm not going to get behind the pulpit, but Scripture says where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think when there is not a vision where we as a family, we as a household, we as a couple are going, then everyone is kind of left to their own vices. And so I think there have to be those times where it's time for vision casting to talk about, this is where I see us going over the next 2 to 5 years, and this is what it's going to take for us to get there, and in order to make that happen, these are some things that we're going to have to do. And there has to be complete buy-in from everybody in the family, because if there is any dissension in the ranks, there's going to be a potential problem. And so, again, those conversations have to happen early on, but they also have to continue frequently.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I think that's a word, right? And so start how you want to finish. Start how you go ahead, Nick. I'm gonna yield to you, man. Go ahead.
No, you was good. I was just, man, he's right on point with it. And like you said, he summed it all up. For the most part, you gotta have that open conversation about where your goals are at, and writing down your goals and saying, hey, this is what we want to get done. This is what we want to accomplish. This is the house goals that we want to do. These are the trips that we want to do. These are the things that we want to do for this year. This is the things that we want to do for the next 5 years. Here's the game plan that we want to do. Okay, are we putting away enough money to tackle this project? Be it that you have a certain house project you want to do each month, or every other month or something, and that's how you keep your house up with certain different things to keep it beautified, whatnot, or certain trips, that summer trip or that fall trip or the couples trip. Okay, I'm gonna take XYZ from my account, not from my account, but from this paycheck, so I can stack this up. So this is already paid before we even get going, and this is already gone and taken care of. That way, when we go, we got some play money. It's already taken care of. And so you got to have those conversations and be strategic and say, hey, there's going to be some long nights, some early mornings, some overtime here and there. I'm going to get on my hustle with this side hustle. I'm going to learn how to do this. And so you always got to be focused on what the goal is, the end in mind, and things like that. So I'm going to say my piece. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. You said a word there too, right? And I think it's just important, just something to put out. I'm always trying to set the gap for our ladies. Not that they need that, but my wife got one daddy, right? And it ain't me. And so I'm very careful not to tell her what she can and cannot do, and what she can and cannot spend, especially when she get up and go to work every day, right? So let me preface this conversation with that. I also believe that everybody spend money to make money. That's what works in my household, right? And we ought to continue to aspire to make more money to add value to the house, right? But I think communication, I think starting, if that's the agreement in the beginning, on our first date, let's talk about money, right? And then we have led and we included that with premarital counseling. What you want to talk? Let's talk about money, right? Let's embed that into those things we do when we get prepared for our life partner, right? That's number one. Starting how you want to finish. If you start saying yes, yes, yes to everything, fellas, forever's a long time to say yes, yes, yes. The second part is if depending on how you run your situation, right? And it's personal, but if you're the leader of the household, you need to lead, right? And if you're leading finances, you need to lead finances. If she is leading finances, then you need to let her lead finances, right? The leader of that identified space needs to lead, right? That means sometimes saying not no, because you gotta be careful with no, because everybody go to work every day. But that is not what's in our plan, right? And I think I said keyword plan and I said communication. There needs to be a roadmap. There needs to be a monthly budget. I mean, to the cent. And it takes time. It takes years. And then the budget is the first part. And in that budget, like we have basic budget. Like if it got hard, this is what we need to maintain where we are. We got 3 levels. Then we have basic plus entertainment, which includes going out to eat X number of, my wife like, Papa Steakhouse, Bob Chop, so it includes that, once a week or once a month. So it includes the number of times we can go sit down and eat, right? The number of bottles we buy, what type of bottles we buy, right? We buy in 1942. No, this is like this is a Jose Cuervo type of month, right? So what we have the basic, then we have the basic plus entertainment. And then we have the basic plus, right? And this is something like these are actual terms, right? That includes that includes a certain amount of money every month going into a family travel account. Because my wife and I agreed we're going to do one really nice vacation every year and one weekend-ish vacation every year. Then we're going to do one with the kids every year. That's relative life. And we've budgeted that out. That's included in our monthly budget. Then there's not only is there budget, that's the starting place. That includes retirement, that includes all the things. But then there's reconciliation. And this is the point where I think we miss. At the month, it's some about trying to convince her not to spend. It just don't work out well. It ain't worked out for me in 9 years of marriage, right? But when I say this is what we agreed upon, here's the vision for wealth. And then every month we have a financial business meeting and we reconcile the books. We said we're gonna go out to eat this many times. We said we're gonna do this to do this. Hey, we're a little heavy in this category. We have categories, and many of us run schools. Many of us run organizations. Run that thing like you run that thing, right? If you're gonna lead. And so we're gonna do a reconciliation. And I ain't gonna tell you what you can't spend, baby, because you go to work every month. But if we said this is our goal, right, and we agreed on this goal, then we are minus 300 this month. We're minus 3,000 last month. We got it. You right, but they don't line with what we said we want to do. And so that's a lot more compelling than trying to be somebody's daddy, because my wife got one and it ain't me. And I'm clear on that. So that's what worked for my house, but everybody do their own thing.
That's real. That's real.
I'll land this plane with my so allow me to tell a real quick story. So my wife is first generation Hispanic. And when we first started dating, we were in DC. I was making fairly good money. And she wanted to go out one night. And I said, I'm broke. And so somehow she found out how to get into my account. And I had $5,000 in there. And she was like, I thought you said you were broke. I said, 5,000 ain't no money. Should I spend that tomorrow? And so growing, we've been married 13 years now and growing. But one key aspect I say that changed everything for us is we took Dave Ramsey's, our church had Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. And so we were a little reluctant at first, but when we took that program, man, I'm talking about it 10X'd everything financially for us. Similar to what Sajade is saying, we have every Sunday at 6:30 a budget meeting on the calendar. Now, sometimes we don't hit it, but it's scheduled. So if there's any discrepancies, if anything we need to talk about, hey, we'll talk about that Sunday at the meeting. And and like everybody said, you have to earmark every dollar. So if you just have loose change out there, it's going to get spent. So if you go through and you line item, I'm an Excel guy. So I have an Excel spreadsheet, and you click this button and it'll show this one is paid and how much, if we can accelerate this bill or whatever. But my whole point is you have to, like everybody else said, get on the same page. But a vehicle like Financial Peace University allowed me and my wife to get on the same page because, again, broke to me was $5,000. Broke to her was no money. And so, that allowed us to have that synergy when it comes to our money. And we've done a great job teaching our daughter. It's funny, my daughter, she'll ask me for things, and I say, "Don't you have some money?" So she'll get her little Chase bag. The joker count out $200 or $300. I'm like, "Well, why are you asking me for money? You got money. Go and spend your money." And I'm like, "No, you help her out or whatever." But no, again, I'm building inside of my 12-year-old daughter now. You don't need somebody else to figure out finances for you. You can figure it out yourself, and you don't need anybody else to have that input on what you believe is right for your life.
Wow. So it sounds like two words that are a common theme of transparency and definitely being, openness, transparency and flexibility as well. Flexibility is very important in order to have a successful financial marriage. Yep. People don't like to look at marriage as a business, but as much as we love our spouses, it's definitely part business to it. So just to keep it real.
If you're gonna leave, then leave, fellas. If not, sit down.
There you go. I can't say it no better than that. Hey guys, you know what, man? We can go on all night, but I think we've had a great conversation, great feedback so far. This is going to be posted to YouTube. We're going to post it on Facebook as well, at The Wealthy Educator. You can like and share this video. Please share it with as many people as you possibly can. Do you all have anything else to add before we go ahead and call it for the night?
I just was going to add in there, we're talking about money and things like that. And a lot of times people can say money is the root of all evil. It's not, it's the love of money. But the thing is you can't be a lover of the money, but you can be a lover of the options that the money creates. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, money creates those options to be able to allow you to create those memories. And that's what we're all about, is being able to create memories. Because a lot of times you can be broke and say, "Oh, I want to go to this trip. I want to go on here." So you can try to create memories, but you're all mad and stuff. Now y'all mad at each other and things like that. You know what I'm saying? And so money will keep people a little bit happy. You shouldn't be happy just with money. You should be happy with the options that money
provides.
That's what I was gonna say with that.
And if y'all listen to this conversation, whether it's live or if you listen to it later and you want to, set up some retirement accounts or life insurance, holler at Nick. Nick, you want to give your information?
You can call at me 817-637-7077, Nicholas Griffin. And email is nickgriffin81@gmail.com. You definitely send me an information inbox me, DM me at on Facebook or Instagram, and definitely love to sit down with you, have a conversation, business conversation with you.
Absolutely. And Cal, earlier you said you want to give your information as well if somebody wants to contact you.
Yeah, Cal Quigg across the social media platforms. calquigg@gmail.com is probably the easiest way to catch me. And the last piece I wanted to just say, we didn't talk as much about stocks as we anticipated. I know the conversation went where it went, so I'm totally cool with that. But one thing I do want to mention to people is when you buy stocks, look at stocks that pay you a dividend. Look at those stocks that send you something every quarter. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in a later podcast. But that is the way that you not only build wealth, but you're able to reinvest that wealth that you get paid from that company on. That's all I have.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely do reinvest those dividends every month. So that's a good point. Good point. So Jay, I know you're over Rocket Ship. Do you want to give any contact information? I know you're trying to recruit more students.
Don't call me. Don't text me. None of that. Feel free to reach out. My number 817-937-1677. I'm on all social media platforms as @Sajay Miller. And so feel free. We are actively recruiting leaders. And the last nugget I'll give is your two things, Rashad. I know we're at time, but we talked about wealth. But the precursor to wealth building is debt elimination. The biggest to make sure you eliminate debt is to avoid getting debt in the first place, right? And that's in conversations. We got to talk about it more as a people, right? And that's living within your means. And by no means am I throwing stones, right? Because we all live in a glass house at some point. And so the second thing that, in addition to eliminating debt, the second closing part is that your effectiveness as a leader in said industry is inextricably linked to your ability, to your financial independence. I can lead more boldly and take more risk that generate more money if I am financially sound. If I am not financially sound, I'm more willing to deal with things and stay at this level and accept what they give me, right? And so I can lead boldly, and I can also take employment risk that only elevate the earning potential and my financial legacy for my parent. But that's because I was faithful over the little, and I was able to be nimble and maneuver because I was not bound by the golden handcuffs that many of our employers seek to put us in. So that's a topic in and of itself, but I'll leave with that.
Well, and so Jade, I appreciate that, man, sentiment. So I'll be real with you before we get out of here and before I give Daryl an opportunity to give his information. But the morning we were debt free, I literally felt like I was going to work for my family instead of for Bank of America or Chase. So I believe the day I was debt free that I became a better school administrator. To this day, I feel like that. I wasn't slaving for anybody else, and I was able to go in there with an open mind and be myself. So I appreciate you saying that, man. It's absolutely true. Daryl, do you have any information you want to give before we get out of here for the night?
Yeah, let me just say thank you, Rashad, for this opportunity. I've enjoyed chopping it up with these good brothers on this call. You can find me on all social media, Elder Dr. Davis, and Elder Daryl Davis at yahoo.com. That is ELDERDARYLDAVIS at yahoo.com. Feel free to reach out if there's anything that I can do to provide any information, education, whatnot.
Good stuff. And if you're looking to buy a house in the DFW area, this crazy seller's market, just holler at me. RealtorRashad@gmail.com. I know it's very difficult right now in this market, but we'll make it happen. But guys, fellas, good brothers, I appreciate y'all, giving us an hour and a half tonight. Give your families my love. I appreciate you all, and we all will hop on one of these calls again soon. All right.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you all.
it, man.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Take care.
All right, too.